Hello my friends, and welcome back to Explore English Podcast. I'm Jack. Before we begin today, I want to ask you a serious question. Have you ever felt like you were trying your absolute hardest, doing everything right, but your life was still falling apart? What do you do when the world you built suddenly disappears in a single afternoon? Today, I am going to share a story with you. It is a real, deeply personal story about hitting rock bottom, feeling completely lost, and finding the quiet strength to rebuild a life from zero. This episode is designed specifically as a long, immersive, slow English listening practice to help you master American English step by step. As you listen, you will hear power vocabulary, natural expressions, and real-life phrases explained in simple English right when they appear. You won't need to pause, and you won't need a dictionary. Every sentence flows directly into the next, keeping you connected to the journey. So, sit back, relax, take a deep breath, and let's begin our story together. It started on a freezing Tuesday morning in late November. I remember standing outside the glass doors of the corporate office where I had dedicated 6 years of my youth. My hands were trembling. Trembling means they were shaking uncontrollably because of extreme stress, fear, or overwhelming emotion. My mind felt completely scattered. Scattered means my thoughts were disorganized, unfocused, and impossible to control. Just 20 minutes earlier, my manager had called me into a private room to tell me that the company was going bankrupt. They were shutting down immediately. There was no severance pay, no advance warning, and no backup plan. I was handed a single cardboard box containing my desk items and shown the exit. Standing on the sidewalk, I felt a wave of cold terror wash over me. I had no clear direction. A direction means a goal, a path, or a sense of purpose to guide your choices. Thousands of people were walking past me on the busy sidewalk. They were rushing to meetings, holding warm cups of coffee, talking on their phones, and moving with clear intent. Yet, despite being surrounded by hundreds of individuals, I felt completely isolated. Isolated means feeling entirely alone, detached, and separated from the rest of the world. I walked slowly down the block and sat on a cold wooden bench near a busy bus stop. Exhausted, I closed my eyes as city buses rushed past me. Rushed means they moved with great speed and force. I felt deeply confused. Confused means being completely unable to think clearly, understand what is happening, or make a rational decision. I was terrified about how I would pay my rent, buy groceries, or face my family. While sitting on that bench, I forced myself to take a deep, slow breath. I tried to focus entirely on the present. The present means the current moment, this exact second, rather than worrying about the past or fearing the future. I closed my eyes and softly whispered to myself, "This is not the end of your story. This is simply the start of a brand new chapter." Saying those words aloud made me feel slightly calmer. Slightly means just a little bit. It was a minor change, but it gave me enough stability to stand up. As I opened my eyes, an elderly woman walking past the bench paused and looked directly at me. Her expression was remarkably reassuring. Reassuring means giving comfort, restoring confidence, and making someone feel safe. She noticed the cardboard box on my lap and asked softly if I was doing all right. Softly means speaking gently, kindly, and quietly. I looked up at her and admitted that I had just lost my job and had no idea what to do next. She nodded slowly. Nodding means moving your head up and down to show understanding, empathy, or agreement. She sat down beside me on the cold bench and said, "Young man, many years ago, I lost my business and my home in the very same month. I thought my life was over. But that terrible loss eventually became my greatest opportunity." An opportunity means a favorable chance for progress, growth, or a fresh start. She shared that after her business failed, she cried every single night. Tears would flood her eyes because the grief felt endless. But eventually, she made a firm choice to rebuild her life. To rebuild means to construct something again after it has been completely destroyed. She spent months learning new skills, took out a modest loan, and opened a tiny neighborhood bakery. It took years of relentless hard work, but she smiled and told me that every moment of struggle was worth the effort. Worth the effort means that the hard work and sacrifice produced a rewarding, successful outcome. Her words deeply encouraged me. Encouraged means filled with hope, spirit, and newfound confidence. After she walked away, I felt a spark of determination ignite inside me. That evening, I sat at my small kitchen table with a fresh notebook and a pen. I decided to make a serious personal commitment. A commitment means a binding promise or a firm pledge to follow a specific path. I wrote in big, bold letters, "I will not surrender. I will not give up, no matter how difficult the path becomes." I decided that every single week, I would force myself to attempt one new experience. Attempt means to try doing something challenging or unfamiliar. I knew that new experiences force us to grow, adapt, and evolve as human beings. Looking around my modest apartment, I realized I was still breathing, I still had shelter, and I still had my health. I felt deeply grateful. Grateful means feeling warm appreciation and thankfulness for what you have. I experienced a powerful sense of gratitude. Gratitude is the formal quality of being thankful and showing appreciation. I told myself that the very next morning, I would begin my transformation with one simple, deliberate action. The next morning, I woke up much earlier than usual. Earlier means prior to the normal or expected time. The morning sky was painted in soft shades of blue and gold, and the air felt crisp and cool. I brewed a cup of black coffee, sat near the living room window, and reviewed my notebook. I wanted to execute my plan immediately. Immediately means right away, without any delay or hesitation. My very first goal was simple: go to the local park and read a book for 30 uninterrupted minutes. A goal means an objective or a target that you actively work to achieve. While reading was something I enjoyed, doing it alone in a public space felt completely unfamiliar. Unfamiliar means unusual, strange, or outside of your normal routine. I walked to a neighborhood park, found a secluded bench beneath a massive oak tree, and sat down. The morning breeze felt extraordinarily refreshing. Refreshing means invigorating, cooling, and filling you with fresh energy. I opened my book, but after a few minutes, I set it on my lap and began to notice the world around me. To notice means to become aware of something through sight, sound, or observation. I noticed bright blue birds singing high in the branches. I noticed a dog owner patiently training a young puppy on the grass. I noticed the gentle rustle of dry leaves tumbling across the pathway. I felt intensely curious about everything I saw. Curious means having a strong desire to learn, explore, and understand details. When I returned to my apartment, I felt genuinely proud. Feeling proud means experiencing deep satisfaction as a result of your own achievements or actions. Completing that small action was highly meaningful. Meaningful means possessing real significance, purpose, and value. I opened my notebook and checked off my very first task. A task is a specific piece of work or duty that must be completed. It was a minor victory, but it proved to me that active change was finally underway. A few days later, I decided my next challenge would involve getting out of my own head and helping others. I decided to visit a local animal shelter. An animal shelter is a facility where abandoned, lost, or homeless animals are housed, cared for, and protected. I wanted my actions to be useful and beneficial to the community. Useful means practical, helpful, and serving a clear positive purpose. When I stepped inside the shelter, a friendly woman named Sarah greeted me. She was a dedicated volunteer. A volunteer is a person who freely offers their time and labor to help others without receiving payment. Sarah explained how the facility operated and asked if I would be willing to feed and socialize some of the rescue dogs. To feed means to give food and nourishment to an animal or person. Initially, I felt extremely hesitant. Hesitant means feeling tentative, uncertain, or slow to act because of doubt or fear. I had never worked with rescue animals before, and I worried I might make a mistake. But Sarah led me to a quiet enclosure where a small, timid dog named Rocky was sitting alone. Rocky was extraordinarily gentle. Gentle means calm, kind, soft, and completely non-aggressive. I quietly sat on the concrete floor a few feet away from him and held out a small bowl of food. For several minutes, Rocky remained motionless, analyzing me with cautious eyes. Then, slowly, step by step, he walked over, ate the food, and gently placed his warm head directly on my knee. A deeply comforting sensation washed over me. Comforting means making someone feel safe, calm, and emotionally secure. At that exact moment, I realized how powerful small acts of kindness truly are. During a short rest break, Sarah mentioned that many of the dogs in the facility had been abandoned. Abandoned means left behind, deserted, and forgotten without care or support. Hearing their background stories made me feel deeply solemn, but it also filled me with a strong urge to contribute more. By the time I left the shelter that afternoon, I felt deeply pleased with how I had spent my time. Pleased means happy, content, and satisfied with a specific result. Several weeks passed in a steady, quiet rhythm. As the days came and went, I continued executing my small daily experiments. An experiment means trying out new ideas, habits, or methods to observe the results and learn from them. Each small action served as a stepping stone. Gradually, my self-worth began to rebuild. I realized that personal confidence grows incrementally. It does not appear overnight, it develops step by step through daily practice and patience. Just as my life seemed to be stabilizing, an unexpected event disrupted everything again. Unexpected means happening suddenly without any advance warning or prediction. One morning, my phone rang. It was my landlord. He informed me that the property owner had decided to sell the entire apartment complex, meaning all tenants had exactly 30 days to vacate the premises. This news felt like a massive setback. A setback is a sudden problem or obstacle that slows down, delays, or stops your progress. I sat on my living room rug in complete shock. I felt utterly overwhelmed. Overwhelmed means feeling completely overcome by intense emotions or stress, making it difficult to function. I had worked so hard to construct a peaceful daily routine, and now it felt like everything was falling apart once more. I felt deeply uncertain about where I would live or how I would afford a new deposit. Uncertain means not knowing what will happen, feeling insecure and unsure about the future. For 3 days, I isolated myself. I felt bitter, angry, and exhausted. I stopped visiting the animal shelter, ignored phone calls, and stayed in bed. However, on the 4th night, I recalled the elderly woman's words from the bus stop, "Every crisis carries the seed of a new beginning." I realized that staying angry would change nothing. Finding a new apartment became my primary mission. The search process was incredibly frustrating. Frustrating means causing feelings of annoyance, distress, and impatience because of repeated obstacles. Every apartment I visited was either completely out of my budget or located hours away from the city center. Finally, after weeks of searching, I found an available room in a shared house. Shared means occupied, used, or possessed jointly by two or more people. I was extremely nervous about living alongside complete strangers. Strangers are people whom you do not know at all. But given my financial situation, I had no alternative. On my very first evening in the house, I met one of my new housemates. A housemate is a person who lives in the same residential house as you. His name was Marcus, and he was an independent graphic designer. At first encounter, Marcus seemed somewhat distant. Distant means cold, reserved, or not easily approachable. However, over the coming days, as we shared coffee in the kitchen, we began to talk openly. He described the immense challenges of freelancing. A challenge is a difficult task or situation that tests a person's determination, skill, and resilience. Adjusting to a communal living environment required major effort. We had different schedules, different standards of cleanliness, and different habits. Occasionally, we held contrasting views on how to keep the shared spaces clean. These disagreements taught me the true value of compromise. To compromise means to reach an agreement where both sides give up something to find a balanced middle solution. It was a powerful lesson in effective communication, emotional maturity, and patience. A month later, I managed to secure a part-time job at a local adult education center. Part-time means working fewer hours per week than a standard full-time schedule. My job was to assist in teaching basic conversational English to newly arrived adult immigrants. Initially, the position went smoothly. I enjoyed creating lesson plans and interacting with the students. However, during my third week, I made a major mistake. Mistake means an error, a blunder, or an incorrect action resulting from bad judgment or carelessness. I accidentally printed and distributed the wrong advanced examination papers to a class of absolute beginners. When the students looked at the test sheets, they became completely confused and anxious. Some students felt deeply discouraged, and two of them went directly to the program director to complain. To complain means to express dissatisfaction, annoyance, or resentment about a problem. When I realized what I had done, I felt deeply ashamed. Ashamed means feeling embarrassed, guilty, and foolish because of one's own actions. I sat in the break room, staring at the floor, wanting nothing more than to pack my bags and run away. Shortly after, the program director called me into her office. Instead of shouting at me, she looked at me calmly and said, "Jack, human beings make errors. Mistakes are inevitable. What defines your character is how you respond to them." To respond means to react, take constructive action, or handle a situation after something occurs. The next morning, I stood in front of my students. I took full responsibility, sincerely apologized for the confusion, and explained what had happened. I promised to extend their review time and provided the correct study materials. To my surprise, the students did not remain angry. Several of them smiled, nodded, and thanked me for being completely honest with them. That experience taught me that real leadership and responsibility are not about being perfect. Responsibility means owning your actions, doing the right thing, and fixing your mistakes even when it feels uncomfortable. Around this same period, another major shift occurred in my personal life. A close friend named Clara, whom I had relied on heavily for emotional support, announced that she was moving across the country for a career advancement. Hearing this news left me feeling profoundly saddened. Saddened means feeling deeply unhappy, sorrowful, and regretful. We spent her final weekend in the city walking through local art galleries and talking about our hopes for the future. She expressed how deeply grateful she was for our bond, and I told her how immensely I would miss her presence. After her departure, my daily routine felt noticeably emptier. Emptier means containing less joy, meaning, or vitality than before. For several days, I resisted texting her because I did not want to bother her while she settled into her new environment. To bother means to annoy, disturb, or interrupt someone. Her absence reinforced how significantly true friendships shape our lives, but her past encouragement continued to give me emotional strength whenever I felt lonely. There was a specific week during the winter when the weight of everything caught up with me again. Life felt excessively burdensome. I had lost my corporate career, was living in a shared house with strangers, had stumbled at my new job, and my closest friend lived thousands of miles away. I began to entertain dark thoughts, believing I was simply not built to survive major life changes. I even considered giving up entirely and moving back to my hometown. A hometown is the town or city where a person was born or spent their childhood. One night, as I sat in my room feeling utterly hopeless, hopeless means believing that things will never improve and that all effort is useless, there was a gentle knock on my door. It was Marcus. He invited me to join him at a small neighborhood cafe where a local acoustic band was performing. Initially, I declined, but Marcus firmly insisted. To insist means to demand something forcefully and refuse to accept no for an answer. I reluctantly put on my coat and followed him out into the cold night. The music at the cafe was incredibly soulful and moving. Watching the musicians play with passion reminded me that beauty, art, and joy still exist, even in the middle of personal hardship. Sitting in that warm, candlelit room, I realized that self-doubt is a completely natural aspect of human growth. Feeling lost does not mean you are failing, it simply means you are transitioning. The following morning, I wrote a letter to myself in my notebook to document everything I had survived. To survive means to continue existing, living, or overcoming dangerous or difficult conditions. I wrote, "You are far more resilient than you realize. You have navigated job loss, financial stress, mistake-making, and loneliness, yet you are still standing. You are not failing. You are undergoing a profound learning process. Writing those words made me feel noticeably calmer. It helped me recognize that meaningful progress is not always rapid or visually obvious. Real progress is often quiet, internal, and slow. Over the next few months, my confidence as an instructor grew exponentially. I developed creative teaching strategies that helped my adult students master complex American English idioms. My classroom became a vibrant, welcoming space filled with laughter and mutual respect. I began to develop a deep sense of belonging. A sense of belonging means feeling accepted, connected, and valued as an essential part of a community. One bright afternoon, while sitting in a coffee shop writing lesson plans, a brand new idea entered my mind. I asked myself, what if I created something of my own? Something designed specifically to serve people who cannot afford expensive language courses. The concept filled me with immense enthusiasm. I felt completely energized. Energized means filled with fresh vitality, enthusiasm, and a strong drive to take action. I spent the remaining hours of the afternoon drafting an actionable plan. My primary project was to establish a free, community-based English-speaking club. A project is a carefully planned undertaking designed to achieve a specific aim. I wanted to build a safe, judgment-free environment where adult learners could practice real-world American English conversation without fear of making errors. I drafted a formal proposal. A proposal is a formal written plan or suggestion submitted for consideration or approval. I presented my proposal to the director of the Education Center. I was extremely nervous as I handed her the outline. Nervous means feeling worried, anxious, or fearful about an outcome. She read through the document carefully, looked up with a warm smile, and said, "Jack, this is a brilliant initiative. We will provide you with a classroom free of charge every Saturday morning." A massive wave of relief washed over me. Relief means a reassuring feeling of freedom from anxiety, stress, or fear. My vision was officially becoming a reality. Our very first meeting took place on a rainy Saturday morning. Only 4 students attended, but their enthusiasm was electric. They were deeply excited to improve their communication skills. I focused the session on basic, everyday phrases, speaking clearly and encouraging everyone to speak without hesitation. Initially, the attendees were quite shy. Shy means feeling reserved, timid, or uncomfortable in social situations. However, within 20 minutes, the room was filled with active conversations and shared laughter. By the conclusion of the session, they were speaking with far greater confidence. I walked back to my shared house that afternoon with a profound sense of purpose. Word about the Saturday Speaking Club spread rapidly throughout the city. Within 2 months, our small classroom became completely overcrowded. Overcrowded means containing far too many people for a space to accommodate comfortably. Sitting desks were completely full, and people were standing along the back wall just to participate. I approached the center's director once again to discuss this new operational challenge. She recognized the incredible impact of the program and agreed to relocate us to the building's main auditorium. Furthermore, she provided state-of-the-art equipment. Equipment refers to the necessary tools, electronics, or items required for a specific activity, such as sound systems, microphones, and modern projectors. The energy within the club became wonderfully collaborative. Collaborative means characterized by people working together jointly toward a common goal. Advanced students voluntarily stayed after hours to tutor beginners. Group members formed study circles outside of class, meeting at local parks and libraries to practice their American English pronunciation together. Seeing this incredible transformation inspired me to organize a community showcase, an interactive exhibition. An exhibition is a public event where achievements, skills, or artistic works are displayed for an audience. Our exhibition would allow students to deliver short presentations, share personal stories, and showcase their linguistic progress to family, friends, and local business leaders. Planning an event of this magnitude required meticulous logistics. Managing the scheduling, stage setup, and invitations felt overwhelming at times, keeping me awake late into the night. But when the day of the exhibition finally arrived, the atmosphere inside the auditorium was electric with positive anticipation. Anticipation means a feeling of excited expectation about something good that is about to happen. Student after student walked up to the microphone and shared their personal journeys in clear, expressive American English. The audience listened intently and responded with loud, enthusiastic applause. Applause means the clapping of hands by an audience to express approval, appreciation, and praise. Standing at the side of the stage, watching my students shine with self-assurance, was easily one of the proudest moments of my entire life. A few weeks later, an unexpected letter arrived in my mailbox. It was an official invitation from a regional educational association asking me to be a keynote speaker at their upcoming conference on adult language acquisition. A conference means a formal meeting where professionals gather to discuss specific topics, share research, and exchange ideas. The thought of standing on a massive stage in front of hundreds of professional educators was terrifying. But I recognized that this was a rare platform to advocate for accessible education. I spent weeks refining my presentation. A presentation is a structured talk given to an audience to explain an idea, proposal, or experience. I practiced my delivery in front of a mirror daily, focusing on clear articulation and confident body language. On the morning of the conference, as I stepped onto the main stage, my hands were trembling slightly, just as they had on that cold morning years ago when I lost my corporate job. But this time, my shaking hands were not a sign of defeat, they were a sign of passion, purpose, and growth. I looked out at the massive audience, took a steady breath, and began to share our story. Looking back on this entire journey, I realized that our greatest setbacks often serve as the silent architects of our personal growth. Losing my original job felt like a devastating tragedy, but it forced me out of my comfort zone and led me directly to my true life's work. Growth is rarely fast, and it is almost never easy, but every single challenge you face is actively preparing you for the person you are destined to become. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time listening to Explore English podcast today. I hope this lesson has provided you with valuable American English vocabulary, refined your listening comprehension, and given you inspiration for your own personal journey. Remember, mastering a new language is not about achieving instant perfection, it is about consistent, daily progress. If this episode brought value to your learning journey, please leave a thumbs up, subscribe to Explore English Podcast, and share this video with a friend or fellow learner who is working to improve their English skills. Keep practicing your slow listening, keep shadowing these sentences out loud, and above all, keep believing in your infinite ability to learn and grow. I'm Jack, and I will see you right here in our next episode. Until then, stay curious, keep moving forward, and have a wonderful day.